Hello and welcome to my forest of discontent, which today is also my forest of confusion because something that has happened in the sustainability versus brands world that has genuinely befuddled me. Consider me dizzy the amount of rabbit holes I've been going through this morning trying to work out what the hell is going on. So I thought I would take you to the forest and we can try and work it out together. In fact, I would like to work it out with the people this concerns, and that is Patagonia's management team. Patagonia, that brand, remember them? Kind of big. I need you guys to take us on board here because I, and seemingly most of the internet, is absolutely riddled with the chafing of discontent and confusion this week, and I would love it if we could work it out. So here's the lay of the land as I see it. This is Patti Gonia, a very cool climate activist that I've been following on social media for years. I think they are phenomenal. Patagonia is their drag persona, like literally the name Patti Gonia, and name themselves after a very famous and very old region in South America. Patagonia, we all know this. So they're a climate activist that's raised like 3.7 million for environmental causes through charity fundraisers. For example, they hiked 100 miles across crazy terrain in full drag to raise money for climate funds. And also their whole message is about getting outdoors, whoever you are, you deserve access to the outside, etc, etc. Remind you of someone, we'll go on to that. So this is Patagonia, the place. There's Patti Gonia, the drag queen named after that region. And then meanwhile, there's you. You're a brand founded in the 70s, also named after the region Patagonia, because your founder went there and thought it was very beautiful and that we should protect it, who has made billions of pounds off the idea that you exist to protect the planet and the people that live in it. Nay, you are climate activists in fashion brand form. In fact, in 2022, your founder, who also became a billionaire from this company, decided to do something completely unprecedented and made Earth the only shareholder, which in practice transferred all the ownership of the company to two entities, the Patagonia Purpose Trust and the Holdfast Collective. Am I right so far? So all the money that you make from making clothes either gets reinvested into the business or gets shared out into dividends to protect the planet. That is literally why you exist. So tell me why I open my phone today to see that you, I'm not kidding, are suing Patti Gonia, the climate activist, for using a name that sounds a little bit like your name. Not only do you say that you're only suing them for $1, but actually you're also suing them for all of the legal fees that will be incurred in this procedure, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars that you definitely have. But it's also not because they ever pretended to be your brand, Patagonia, or used your logo, or did anything of the sort, but because checks notes, their activism and performances are causing irreparable damage to your brand and could cause confusion with customers. When I saw all this, I genuinely thought there was some kind of missing part to the puzzle. I was like, this has to be a misunderstanding, but it's not. It's because you're alleging that they compete directly with the products and advocacy upon which the firm is built. This is like some kind of Agatha Christie book, I'm not gonna lie. It's just getting more confusing the more I read about it. There are loads of stinging nettles this way, let's go a different way. Not only that, but you're claiming that she used your font and maybe your logo at some point, but you already know that's not true. You already asked people, you already researched that, right? Even the screenshots that you use in your legal document like aren't real. She posed with some fan art that somebody else made. She's not selling that anyway. You know that, so we don't need to discuss that bit. Now, you've known about her for 8 years, so the only reason we can all on the internet work out why you might be doing this now is because Patti, the drag performer, has filed for a trademark of her own brand, Patti Gonia, because of all the AI shit that is going on at the moment, which is something that I have documented on the channel. I've had problems with it as well, and in fact, that's the reason that I recently verified my Instagram account, because creators are extremely vulnerable to people using their image and their voice to produce versions of them as AI, because we have so much scrapable, unprotected content on the internet that it's very easy to imitate us. That is something I absolutely do understand. So I know what their motivations are, but yours are a little bit more murky. I know that you're clever. You're a big brand. You probably have loads of smart people working for you. So I have spent the whole day with my husband Craig, sitting down, researching, thinking to ourselves and trying to come up for reasons why you've done this.
I can't believe you've done this.
Because it can't be the money, because you're not making any money. Well, probably some people are making money, but you're making less money than most of the other brands. So something isn't adding up. Someone is lying here, or someone is leaving out the truth. Now, I've got a list of all of the reasons that it could be to interrogate, and I've left the most likely one till last. But let's begin. The first reason could be genuine damage control. You actually believe that Patti Gonia is going to cause irreparable damage to your brand. Now, presumably, if that was true, you would have stepped in the 8 years previous. But even if your audience are stupid enough to think that you are the same thing or that you are linked in any way, even though there's no visual brand crossover, the websites, social handles, fonts, branding, all of that are completely different. Even if people did conflate you slightly, why would that be irreparable damage, since your missions are almost identical, promoting the access to nature and protecting it? I sincerely doubt, as I would imagine most people watching this videos would, that "Make nature gay again" is your slogan and something you came up with. But if it was, why would that be a problem? Why would that cause irreparable damage? Do we really think that we are going to mix up these two t-shirts? So I don't think it can be that, because of the timing, because of the message, and just simply because of the absurdity. So number two could be genuine corruption. Maybe the whole "Earth is our only shareholder" shtick is actually complete greenwashing to secure brand loyalty and therefore more money. Although we've discussed, I don't know legally how you're smuggling money out of the business when you've set it up like this. So I'm confused about that one. Just like Patti Gonia says, it is a betrayal of Patagonia's whole core mission, because they're in the business of saving the planet. Why are they suing a climate activist? Maybe you're about to be corrupt. Maybe this is the sign that you're doing a Shein Everlane deal behind the scenes, and you're actually going to start going into business with a huge, horrific fast fashion brand and go back on all the shareholder stuff. Maybe you're about to be exposed for something really awful. Have you been dealing in oil slicks? Are you back on the fast fashion thing? You got accused of that a little bit. Back on the fast fashion thing, garment worker abuse, all of the, is that going to be a bigger thing soon? You trying to cover up something? Are you worried that Patti Gonia, the drag artist, might drag you for that? Because I agree, them campaigning against you would be really embarrassing. But anyone who's a climate activist campaigning against you would be really embarrassing. What are you about to reveal? If there's nothing that you're about to reveal, you're going to stay on this path, you have to know that we're all thinking that you're about to, because that's the signals that you're giving off. The next reason it could be is sheer embarrassment. If you look at Patti Gonia, the drag performer's merch strategy historically, it's been much more sensible and straightforward when it comes to achieving the core mission than yours. You've been called out by Greenpeace and PETA for the use of toxic chemicals and animal welfare in your production system, and Patti, meanwhile, has been selling second-hand, used or discarded t-shirts and reprinting her own branding on them and selling them as individual unique items on their website. Much more annoying to do, much harder to organize, much more resource and cost intensive. A strategy that you could bear easily with your billions, but somehow on their smaller budget, they've managed to make work. That is kind of cringe on you. And this is a trend we're seeing all over the climate movement. Those who are keeping up on it, as probably most of your customers are, because that's your main customer base, right, are already seeing this trend coming into the climate space in spadefuls. This backtracking on support for activists when they genuinely do what they say they're going to do, when they start demanding genuine changes in laws rather than just spray painting a logo green or turning up to Earth Day, when Greta starts joining the dots between environmental activism and imperialism and capitalism, somehow, weirdly, brands about your size with motivations you don't claim to have do exactly what you do. They back off from the climate movement, nay, they try and stop them. As somebody who has worked in corporate and has been on a brand team and has worked in business development management, I understand why you can't be as agile as an individual or a singular climate activist, but just because you can't follow somebody there as fast or as nimbly, pulling them back so they also can't go there, weird. So maybe you're embarrassed. She's showing you up because she's genuinely doing the work and genuinely trying to change the systems rather than just tweak them and keep going with them. The next point on my list, you're not gonna like, I'm not gonna like, but we're all thinking it. Homophobia. As Patti pointed out herself, homophobic hate crime is at an all-time high in the USA. So if you were secretly homophobic, this would be a really good time to act on that when nobody would notice and everyone's distracted, or maybe it's the most socially acceptable it has been in decades. Perhaps you are genuinely uncomfortable that somebody might associate you in any small, wispy, tiny millimeter way with a drag queen. And that's weird, because if you think about it, you also have the same mission in that you both want people to look good while hiking and getting outdoors. Maybe it's some kind of subconscious jealousy because Patti looks better hiking than any of their models ever could. Oh good, people who don't have good recall of their dogs, my favourite. The second to last possible reason is a really simple one, and I'm sorry if it comes across as rude, but you might just be really bad at your jobs. I don't know who you've been hiring recently. I don't know who in your company is making these decisions or framing these arguments, but it seems that you could be misunderstanding / woefully underestimating your core customer base, of whom I'm sure you know well. Middle class to affluent, environmentally conscious consumers who read a lot, who keep up on news like that. And even if they don't want to keep up on the news, the thing about the internet in the last 10 years, just to catch you up in case you weren't on here, you don't need to keep up on it. The algorithm will tell you about it anyway. Sticky ads, digital footprints. If I buy from Patagonia, I get served articles about Patagonia, and you don't get to choose what those articles say. And this is a mistake that Lucy and Yak and Wild have fallen into as well, and paid the price for it. As you all know, if you have been reading up on business development in the last 5 years, is that they don't really genuinely think that their audience believe what they say they do, that they are genuinely worried about the climate and willing to act on it and boycott it accordingly, that they are very sensitive to bad brand choices and pivots, that they do pay attention to what brands do. They do care about what other people think. So it's embarrassing to keep buying from a brand when everybody around you knows what they did. That's not cool anymore. It makes them look like their worst nightmare, which is poorly read, poorly informed. What I think you're underestimating here is that it's not that hard for your customer base to hear about what you do, and it's also not that hard for them to switch. We are not in the era of faithful customer rebuying. That is not an easy thing for people to do. And in the age of the internet, when most people aren't going into your shops, they're buying them online, they don't even need to walk a step further into a different shop or change their physical buying habits. They just load a different browser. In fact, if you are a Patagonia shopper and you like that kind of style and you wanted that kind of ethics out of Patagonia, Rapanwire are a great brand that makes stuff in the UK and don't have all this dodgy stuff around them. And you could probably just switch to them instead. It's no skin off your nose, no skin off my nose. It will be skin off Patagonia's nose, of which I'm sure they were almost to the bone now. I don't know why you've done this absolutely radically, incredibly bad PR move, even if it's a good business move. It's not that hard to hire good brand and communication comms people in this era. In fact, there's a hell of a lot of them out there, but I'm willing to guess that maybe you've just outsourced it to some, what my dad would call cowboys. Or did somebody hire a Harvard graduate with no actual real life experience? Or was it a sham agency started by a Nepo baby? Somebody's nephew's never spent a day on the internet. One of the above could have been it. I don't think that the founder or the founders' families would have fallen into this from what I've read of their research and legacy, so something must have happened. But it remains. Maybe this is just genuinely a huge mistake. However, we're coming to the most likely reason that I found suggested on the internet, which I do believe to be what may have actually happened. So the thing about trademark law is you can't just trademark a brand and then leave it and then just sue the people who particularly annoy you and like let off other people. Or at least you can, but it is a little bit risky. And that's because if you let a climate activist carry on with in what your logical brain thinks is a genuine breach of copyright, later down the line, if somebody diabolical, like, I don't know, Russell Brand or Andrew Tate does a similar thing and starts selling merch that imitates your merch, which again is not something that Patti Gonia has done, but we're living in your reality world right now. If they do that later down the line and you try and take them to court, they have the argument potentially that could ruin your argument, although not guaranteed, that you didn't do anything about that drag artist back in 2026, so why are you doing it to them? And that is like one strike against your name in court. Not a guaranteed fail, but like an annoying thing for the lawyers to bring up. So basically, if you don't enforce your own trademark, you technically could use it. So on a hypothetical, minor, decades in the future chance that something like that in theory could maybe happen, and because Patti Gonia is being sincere in their pursuit of climate justice and activism and raising money for sustainable initiatives, that could technically not be a parody in the way we understand drag inherently as a performance and a parody. And therefore, because of all of that stuff that hasn't happened and probably won't, you'd probably have the money and the resources and the smarts to deal with it if it did, you are going to put a match on your existing customer base at one of the most vulnerable times for fashion brands in all of history. That's what you're going to do. That's the plan. Now, I know that I'm just a random British woman talking to herself, walking through a forest. But here are some solutions that I'm sure you might have discussed, but just in case, communicate. I know it sounds like something your couples therapist told you to do, but unfortunately we're going to have to bring it to the workplace as well. Communicate. Tell your customer base and the wider climate community that has been supporting you for all of these decades and one of the reasons you are so successful, let them in on it. Looking a little bit corporate and trying to play safe with the law is much more preferable than looking hella homophobic, disingenuous, evil and greenwashing. That is going to cost your bottom line a lot more than seeming a little bit corporate. If you did have to sue Patti Gonia and you genuinely believe that that's like a real thing that you have to do, which by the way, I don't think it is, and you should drop the lawsuit, then why the hell are you asking her to cover your legal fees? Why is that happening? And you're saying it's only for $1, but we know it's also for all of your hundreds of thousands of legal fees. Why aren't you paying Patti's legal fees? If this is truly a theatrical exercise to protect you in the future, why aren't you, if you really insist on them having to change their branding, which I don't think they should do, why aren't you offering to hire them a branding team? Why aren't you propping them up financially while they take this huge hit to their business and all of their time and lose some of their life to this legal case? Or potentially, and I really think that Patti would have mentioned this if you already approached them about it, why wouldn't you collaborate with Patti Gonia on a merch line and condone their performance as part of the collective effort towards good? Why aren't you initiating something that would separate her performance of a completely different thing that is in some way on occasion with their consent in collaboration with you? Separate that in the laws and the court's minds from Russell Brand selling hats with your name on. How much time and effort and literal departments in companies do brands dedicate towards influencers putting their brand name front of consumers' brains? And just by saying the word Patti Gonia, which is a region that you yourself named your brand after, but just by saying that word that sounds a little bit like your word, the psychology of marketing means there is actually an advantage for you. It's not a logical segue into what you're doing, but if she is such a threat, that means she has such an impact, and that impact is largely positive. I understand doing any of those things, but particularly at least not asking them to pay your legal fees would make me think, even if it's not the right decision, would make me think that somebody was actually driving this thing, that an adult was actually at the wheel. But you haven't done any of those things. Now, I understand the tension between corporate legal stuff that you want to do to protect your brand and PR. Unfortunately, without PR, there is nothing to protect. You are ruining your actual, real, live, profitable brand that people are actually buying from in this moment over a hypothetical that may never happen. And honestly, if it does happen, you should fix it when that happens. You're smart enough, you have all the resources, you have all the money to fix something like that if it happens. You shouldn't be asking an individual climate activist to fund that for you, to solve that problem before it's even happened at the altar of your brand. And ironically, I truly believe that your trademark will lose value over this situation. Alanis Morissette couldn't even make this up. After all, nobody wants to imitate a brand that no one likes, or through boycotting and exhaustion and consumer apathy faded into the background so people don't even think about the name Patagonia in 10 or 15 years. Kind of like we don't really think about BHS or Woolworths or something like that in this country. We just don't think about it anymore because they made some bad business decisions and they died. I think, and I'm going to venture a guess that the comments below this video will confirm this, that what you are doing has already caused more harm to your brand and your bottom line than Patti ever could. Now, you do have a liberal, open-minded audience. They might be able to forgive you, might be able to forgive you if you back down right now. But honestly, we are at the 11th hour. You're on very, very thin ice. On top of all that, need I say it to you, no brands, no successful marketing emails, no high CTA click-through rates on a dead planet. And I might just be a grumpy Brit who's just come out of the most diabolical May heat wave I have ever experienced. We just had the hottest day on record for May, I kid you not, and as a May baby, I'm used to having to cancel my picnic birthdays because of rain, and this year I couldn't even go outside because it was so hot. It's kind of top of my mind that you're wasting our time. We literally don't have time for this. Activists like Patti are acting like it's urgent while you're acting like this is some kind of plaything. And moreover, I'm not asking you to save us. I'm not asking you to be the perfect sustainable brand or fight and lobby for the rights of the planet, actually. I don't mind if you do that or you don't. All we need you to do is shit or get off the pot. Help us save the planet on which we drink lemonade and swim in pools and have children and care about our loved ones and go to work and occasionally buy a nice pair of shorts for a hike at the weekend. Let us save that, or just get out of the way. Thank you so much for watching this video. The reason that we weren't interrupted by a sponsor and I'm able to be quite vocal about the climate crisis and the brands that are frankly making it worse is because of the Gumption Club. They tip me for these videos so that you can watch them for free and keep them happening via Patreon. What I would love though is if you left your feelings about Patagonia after learning this news below, especially if you have ever been or thought about being a customer or have friends and family members you will now be telling to not be a customer. That will be really useful data for them to find in the comments. And of course, when I made my video questioning the ethics of Lucy and Yak, it did actually seem to cause them a little bit of distress or embarrassment, or at least it did cause some national newspapers to make articles about it, which really does help when you're trying to get through to the PR team. So if you do want to reshare this video or share it with a friend, we might be part of a group of people trying to get Patagonia to drop the lawsuit. All of my sources are in the description. Don't let the knobheads get you down. Frog Snug out.